My mother claims I sang before I talked, which just goes to show you that storytelling is genetic. But there was a grain of truth in that. I loved to sing for as long as I could remember. And I loved music of all kinds. I used to go into the living room. We had a stereo that was as big as a Cadillac. And I would love to listen to my parents' music, Frank Sinatra and Doris Day and Peter, Paul, and Mary, from whom I learned how to sing harmony. And my parents got this a little bit later. They got one of these little electronic organs. And I loved to go in the living room and pick out tunes on it by ear. And somewhere along the line, though, I got this idea that to be a real musician, you had to play an instrument. And I really wanted to be a real musician. So I got really excited when we moved to a new town and we found out that they had orchestra in the elementary school. I got so excited. My dad took me downtown. I was gonna play the violin. And we bought the violin. It was a little 3/4 number. It was probably a little bit better than a cardboard box with strings. But if I had known the word Stradivarius, I would have said that's what it was. I was so excited. And then the lessons started. It was a group lesson, and our teacher, Mr. Snotley, okay, that's not his real name. That was what some of us called him, Mr. Snotley. Well, I think he was one of those men who taught little children but didn't really like little children, or at least he didn't like me. Every time I would play, he would get this look on his face like he had sucked on a lemon. And I practiced. At home, I would practice and practice and practice. But I'd go into the lesson and he'd say, Denise, you play it. And I'd play it and it would just come out all wrong. And then he'd say, no. And he'd point to this other girl. You know, there's always one of those in the group. Susan, she was, I don't know, she was a prodigy or something. Listen to Susan play it, he'd say. And so Susan would play it perfectly. And I would just want for the floor to open so I could sink down into the linoleum and disappear. Well, I was so torn because I really wanted to be a musician. But taking these lessons was painful. I felt terrible. And so at the end of 4th grade, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to quit, but I didn't want to quit, and I felt guilty, and so I suffered through for another year in 5th grade, and at the end of 5th grade, I really still wanted to be a musician. But it was really, really hard, and that summer I went to orchestra summer camp, and it was just as bad as during the year, only sweatier. But at the end of 6th grade, my decision was made for me, more or less. I had to choose. In 7th grade, was I going to play in the orchestra or was I going to sing in the chorus? And I chose chorus. We traded in the violin for a guitar, and I taught myself how to play badly, but well enough to accompany myself in church basement coffee houses and even sometimes at school. But inside, I felt like a failure, like I wasn't a real musician. Well, one day in the 8th grade, I came home from school and my mother said, "Get in the car." And I was like, what? Why? What? "Your father bought a boat without asking me, and we are going to buy a piano and you are going to play it." So I took piano lessons, and fortunately I had a really nice teacher, Mr. McGowan. But when it came to the recital, I guess the damage had already been done, because I sat there in the perfect living room with all the parents and the other piano students, and I put my hands on the keyboard, and it was like whatever I knew of the minuet in G had just gone south for the winter. My hands were paralyzed, and I just wanted a hole to open in that pale blue shag carpet so that I could sink down and disappear. I found another teacher who didn't require recitals, and I played, but not with much enthusiasm. I went to college. My guitar got stolen. I didn't play the piano. I went to graduate school in drama speech, and I met the love of my life in a show. He was playing the guitar. And then I heard him playing the piano one day, and I just about swooned. And as they say, the rest is history. I married the love of my life. He's a professional pianist, a really fine one too. And he has a brother who's a world-class guitarist. Google him, Stephen Bennett. And I never touched the piano in front of my husband, and I certainly, well, I'd sometimes play the guitar for our kids, for preschool, but I wasn't a real musician. No. For my 45th birthday, I came home. I had the kids with me, and I knew my husband wouldn't be there because my birthday is in December, and he's a professional musician. He was playing for a holiday party. But he'd left a present for me. It was sitting there on our buffet, and it was a little box, and there was a card, and I unwrapped it, and it was a dust buster. One of those little handheld vacuum cleaners, and the card said, "Don't say this present sucks." My children, in the meantime, were looking at me with great pity. Neither one of them was dating at this point, but my sons were looking at me like, what kind of man gives the love of his life a dustbuster for her birthday? And they said, "It's okay, Mom. We'll go get you our present." And they ran upstairs, but then they came down immediately and they said, "Mom, Mom, Mom, you have to go upstairs. You have to go upstairs now." And I said, "Well, what about your present?" "Never mind our present. Go upstairs, Mom. Go into your room." And I said, "Well, okay." And I was going upstairs, and I thought, you know what? He probably got me flowers. He's really romantic like that. I'm sure he got me a big bouquet of roses, and I went upstairs. I opened the bedroom door. And standing there in our bedroom was a harp. A few years earlier, I had heard a storyteller who also played the harp. and I had fallen in love. I started getting harp CDs. I went to harp concerts. I was even writing a story where the main character was a medieval troubadour who played the harp. But I never thought that I'd actually get one. They're expensive, and I was just standing there staring at it. My kid said, "Mom, go play it!" And I walked over to it and I touched the strings. It was magic. So now I play my harp in public. I play it with storytelling. I play it for my people at the retirement community where I work. There's one old lady who says, "Oh, every time I hear you play, I think I've already died and gone to heaven." So I guess what I've found is that I am a musician after all. Thank you.